First and foremost, good afternoon and welcome to the last Pannos marketing webinar of 2024. This time we're doing something a little bit different from our previous sessions. We're trying out a bit of a new format, an actual roundtable discussion with our panelists today. So today I have joining me Paul Tonelli. He's the Vice President and Creative Director, and then we have Jay, who is one of our account executives here at the agency. So to round out Q4 of 2024, we just wanted to chat about a really important topic, which is the resurgence of traditional marketing channels and tactics. So to kind of kick things off, would you guys be able to speak a little bit about the reasons or some of your thoughts into why you think traditional marketing channels like direct mail, outdoor video, TV video, and radio, print are making a strong comeback, and how they might complement some digital strategies?
Sure. I'll jump in first.
Sorry?
I mean, I think what's important to remember is that, community financial institutions are essentially small businesses that are part of the community. And I think even though digital does such a great job, at so many things, I think what it doesn't do is actually make that connection with the community at a more intimate level. I don't know I know you work with clients on a regular basis, Jay, and wondering what they're saying, but I feel like traditional media still has a place in the mix to be able to kind of cover that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree, Paul. And I think it's, from what I'm hearing from a lot of my clients is, there is that kind of, the messaging that they want to portray is one of a community bank, someone that knows their customers, that's involved in their communities, and those kind of things. And sometimes to put everything in like a digital only channel kind of cuts back a little bit on that one-on-one connection, some of that, making those direct messaging that I think, sometimes these more traditional pieces of media can use. I think you're getting an opportunity to be tangible to people, with direct mail or any of those kind of things. It's something people can hold, something they can take with them, something they can carry along. There's a certain groundedness to some of that messaging. No,
absolutely. And the idea of what a community stands for really hasn't changed all that much. If an FI is in the middle of your neighborhood or down the street, you're still walking by or driving by. You have a sense there's sort of an intrinsic connection that you're part of the same fabric of that community, even if it's not your bank or credit union. You still, it's like it's driving past the grocery store. And even if you don't go in, it's like, hey, that's my grocery store. That's in my neighborhood. And I think that's an important thing to remember, and something that digital just doesn't do. I mean, it's a little random out there, right? It'll find you. It's great for targeting. It does all kinds of wonderful things. But that authentic, pull you in, build the relationship sort of thing, I don't think happens enough.
Yeah.
So, a long time ago, and not even that long ago, but certainly less now, people are walking into the branch. So a lot of our clients will say, oh, we've been around for 100 years and, we're a big part of the community. And it's important that we know their names and all that. And that's wonderful, but they're not walking in the branch as much. Mm-hmm. So that means traditional media has to take on a bigger role, whether it's direct mail or outdoor, or, radio, whatever it might be, some in-branch stuff for sure. But if you're at the local Little League game and your presence is there, I think that goes a long way to say, hey, we believe in the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And something else we've been kind of chatting about before too was, I think, like you mentioned, even if this isn't a bank or a credit union that you bank with specifically, but just seeing it there in your town, in a billboard, I think your presence makes a big impact. And, living here in Manchester, if I were to switch banks, I know which one I would go to just because they have such a huge presence in the marketplace.
I think as a marketing agency, there's opportunity there too. If we help our clients wrap themselves, like sort of wrap their arms around the idea that they're still in a neighborhood, they still have connections to the people that are there. Bigger companies, bigger banks and bigger credit unions that maybe are national or whatever they might be, they don't own that. Mm-hmm. There's something there's a distance between them and the local community. So there's something in your neighborhood that you can take advantage of and create sort of, ongoing consistency as a presence in that neighborhood.
Certainly.
So some of the things like direct mail, I mean, if you're receiving a direct mail package or whatever it might be, even just a simple letter from someone local to you, you're connected to it to some degree. You may open it because it's like, hey, I've seen their billboard and they interest me. They do a lot in the community. So direct mail can be working not like a national brand where they're, if you were getting something from some national brand, you may just poo-poo it and go, oh, it's just another solicitation. But if it's a neighbor and it's a local small business, then I think there's a better chance that you'll jump in and maybe think about it, right? Because I can either stop by or, we own a little bit of the same, fabric of the community.
Yeah. And it's definitely an awareness thing too, because even if maybe you're not attracting that person at that exact moment, it doesn't take much for somebody to decide, I'm fed up with my current institution. I'm ready to make that change. I'm going to go with these guys. You're top of mind. You're still, you've built that kind of that connection with people that, should the opportunity arise, you'll be top of mind. So that's we all know it's tough to get people to switch, but when they're ready, they're going to make that change happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think the goal is to be memorable and to be connected and be relevant, right? So if we're from, it doesn't have to be a small community. I think sometimes we use the word community, we think it's some 50s
Bedford Falls.
sitcom, it's Mayberry RFD or something, But I don't think it's that. I think it's a geography, and there's pride in where you come from, where you live. I mean, if you made a commitment to be, to buy a house or be a part of a town or a city, you've made a commitment. And knowing that, the bank or credit union down the street is making the same commitment too, I think there's this sort of bond that, that happens. And, whether it's kind of a billboard that's, I personally think if you could own a spot and say, hey, that's my, my local bank or credit union's billboard, and they change up that message and I hear it and I can get a sense of who they are, hey, they're kind of like me, and then maybe they show up at a little league or a high school game and they got a promotion going on. And now that drumbeat of their brand and their values starts to sink in. And that's where I think traditional media has a really strong place in the mix. As I said earlier, it's not something digital can really do, especially in the world of, online these days, between fake news and, just being bombarded with, social media. Not that it's not bad, but it consumes us in a different space. And there's a lot of, there's a lack of trust too. When you go online, is that really information that, I'm being sold something or whatever?
Right.
Is there a trusting factor there? And I think a piece of print maybe, or a direct mail piece, you go, okay, that's my neighbor right there. I'm gonna read into it a little bit more than just some kind of random digital ad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe bring some insight kind of back to what you were saying about the community part of things. I think speaking from my point of view as like a millennial Gen Z cusp, a lot of us are sort of looking for community that we don't necessarily have in the same way that maybe your generation did. So I think it's really important and definitely adds a bit to, when I receive mail at our apartment, I love it just because, again, it makes me feel part of that community. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. And also, knowing that this company or bank or credit union, whoever sent it, just to me sort of shows that they put in a little extra care and effort and time into doing that. So.
I think that's why there's a little bit of a comeback and, direct mail and some of the traditional channels, certainly, video and streaming services, you're able to sort of target people in a more intimate setting and say what you need to say and make that connection. But I think having gone through, the last 4 or 5 years and all of that stuff, I think people are ready to get back to some sense of neighborhood and caring about one another. We're not isolated.
Right.
People want small town touch a little bit wherever they can get it.
Precisely. No, and I think too, I mean, from my perspective, and again, working with clients on that end, it's about building relationships. And again, I think a lot of our smaller community banks, their history and kind of their raison d'etre is to build those relationships with their customers, whether they're existing, which is important because you don't want to forget the people that you're that are already banking with you, but also try to build that trust with potential new customers. And I think, there's been a lot, there's always a lot of emphasis on lenders, oh, we're local lenders, we manage your loans here in person, those kind of things. A lot of those people, a lot of those bank employees or financial institution employees have relationships and are well known within their community. So there's an opportunity there to feature those people in a direct mail piece, on a billboard, flyers that are handed out, those kind of things. There's a recognition level that I think these people can bring, and maybe not just the lenders. There's some of your front end people. They're the face of the bank to those people, to those customers that are coming in on a regular basis, whether it's to do a normal transaction or, heaven forbid, if there's an issue, if a customer has a problem or an issue, they want to come in and actually talk to somebody and feel like they're being respected and heard and all those kind of things. And to put a face, I think sometimes behind that and have that comfort level, that's something that, that just an online ad can't do. And I think there's a chance to kind of really get those faces and get that relationship touch in front of people in a more tangible way.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to trust.
Yeah.
And I think people that are, in your circle, you tend to trust a little bit more. Authenticity, as talked about, is really important, but I do think the trust factor comes down to a little bit more of a human connection. And that repetitive nature of seeing, some of the traditional things out there can really help that. Direct mail, you physically open it, like you physically touch it. Whereas digital channels, as I said, are great, but there's a distance. No matter how great it is, it's sort of a little bit of a, hey, I'm looking for the rate as opposed to looking for the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's certainly, a big part of what we do. So I'm not poo-pooing it, but some of the channels that are out there that are more traditional, there's a visceral sense to it. Like, I go get the mail, I look at the envelope. Oh, that's my small business neighbor bank credit union down the street. There's a little bit more trust that's just sort of kind of innately there. And now if I'm interested in it, I open it, I touch it, I read it. And I do think that has a lot of power still, even though it may sound like a little old school. Again, it's not going to wipe out all the great things that digital does, but I think as part of the mix, it's really
it's
important.
about a holistic approach, I think, too. It's just, and I think, with things that have changed over time, with things like direct mail, back in the old days, you'd send out a mailer and you wouldn't necessarily be 100% sure what kind of response you were getting.
Right.
With using QR codes that are becoming much more popular, that were kind of weird at first, but now they're much easier to use. Right. You're able to use these kind of more traditional methods and still be able to track it. It gives you kind of the advantage that digital did from the early days. It's like, oh, we can, we know who's getting it, we know how many people are seeing it, that kind of stuff. Email. You can still get reporting on how many people opened it, how many people responded. It's about the messaging. It's about the content that you're providing. You want to make sure that in what you're providing to, and not just by the channel you're doing it, but the messaging you're doing, the offers you're making, are you giving people a clear direction and a clear set of actions to take? Because nobody wants to figure it out. You want to make sure that it's very clear, it's very direct. So you want to make the customer experience or potential customer experience that much easier. So, saying traditional doesn't deliver on that kind of ROI kind of things. Like, no, there are ways now that we can make sure that, we're tracking that information.
It's a great point. I think just the simple QR code, like you mentioned, I think is a great way to tie a direct mail package to the online experience, or it gets you closer to, down the funnel or whatever you're looking for. If you're interested in the message that you got in one method, it can drive you to a more digital fast channel to get you, to where you need to be, to an application or whatever it might be. So I think that's really cool. And also, as you mentioned, it builds a better experience because now we're hitting you in a couple different angles. We're treating you like a little bit more of the human touch, but also bringing you right where you need to be able to execute on what you're looking for. So that credibility factor is now embedded in that, which is really huge. The other thing we forget about too is word of mouth. That still happens. So if you're guided to maybe some social presence, which is personal too, and that's I think a really important part, even though it's not categorized as traditional media. I think social media is such a part of brands now that you can be yourself there. You can show the, the human side of what your brand is. So I think it really plays in really into that authenticity side and shows that credibility. You can be followed. So if you were at, if a bank or credit union was at the local high school game, handing out number one fingers or something like that with their logo on it, it shows that they're loyal to their area, but it's also something memorable.
Yeah.
It shows credibility, and then that word of mouth. It's like, hey, did you notice so and so from X bank was there, and it's a good look.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even from like an internal agency perspective, we really believe in the power of direct mail too. I mean, for every large conference that we go to, we invest a lot of time and effort into making sure that our mailers are, memorable. They tie into, any given theme for that conference. But I think it's something that, we really strongly believe in too. So, it's one thing to say that we would recommend this, and while cost is always a factor, I think it's something that we really take a lot of pride in.
Sort of walk the walk a little bit.
Absolutely.
Walk the talk, what is it? Walk the walk.
Walk the walk and talk. Yeah.
Talk the talk. Yeah, and I can tell you firsthand, being at those conferences, people come in with it, they're holding it.
Mm-hmm.
So they took it out of their sorted mail box or pile or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sure, we have a little bit of an offer there or something that, there's a payoff. But that in itself shows that it works. It's like, people do want a little nudge or a little bonus to kind of playing the, the game here a little bit, but they walk in with it, and they come to us and they say, oh my God, I really loved your message that you put together and I wanted to show up. And oftentimes people just say, wow, this is really nice. I like it. So there's that memorable factor that really happens. So yeah, we do kind of walk the walk and talk the talk a little bit there. We're an agency that does a lot of digital. So we're certainly not, throwing it under the bus, but we do know that it's getting thicker and thicker out there. There's a bit of a clutter in the kind of the digital path there. So we navigate through that to do messaging that sticks from a digital standpoint. But it is getting harder and harder to stand out and represent your brand in that space. Your clients speak to that?
For sure. And I think part of it too is you have to know your client base too. What kind of customers are you catering to on a regular basis? And are you reaching out to them in any and all media options that would appeal to those various demographics? There are some people that are online, younger ages are going to be online all the time. That's how they assimilate most of their information. Okay, so you want a presence there. Are there some people that still love coming into the branch? They like that one-on-one interaction. They like being able to have something tangible in their hands. Knowing who those people are and being able to cater your messaging or any products or offers that you have to those people, that's important too, because you don't want anybody to feel left out. You want people, you want any or all of your customers. And I think that's a big thing too, is it's making sure that you're also communicating as effectively to your existing customers. Everybody wants to bring in new accounts. That's obviously that's a priority for every institution. But are you equally servicing and really recognizing those existing customers because you want to retain them? Because those customers have family members. It's a word of mouth thing that you were just speaking about. It's like they can recommend you. They're a great opportunity to get your message out. And if you've had a good opportunity to establish that brand and that relationship with them, they're more than willing to share that with other people they know. My kids bank with the same bank that my wife and I do because, hey, we have a great relationship with them. We get able to set up our kids in that same way. Eventually they may make their own decisions. They may relocate, they're going to different places. They're going to, maybe make some changes, but it's really kind of that generational thing and knowing, are you making those touch points to the specific market?
I just wrote down, the sort of the generational aspect of word of mouth. I think every small business sort of wants to keep it going, right? Mom and dad come in, they love it. Are they sharing it with their kids so that the next generation of customers can come through the door or order online, whatever it might be? And I think for a bank or credit union, this is your money you're talking about, right? It's your kid's future. It's your retirement. It's your saving for your vacations. It's all these personal things You know, it doesn't get any closer to home than that. So that relationship really, really matters. That word of mouth from someone my age down to my kids. I'm seeing right now, so I have adult kids. You know, they're all over 20, all over 25, actually. I have 4, so it's not like I have, 17, but I have 4 is a lot. But I can see the kind of the full circle coming back, like some of the things that, my wife and I it was our day-to-day practice. We bank here, we shop there, we do this. These are the things that we really invest our time in. And kids, when they're younger, well, they're just going about their lives. But then they become adults, and they have their own bills, and they have their own kind of things that they want to save for. And I see them coming back to some of the things that we do. It's like they're becoming more and more like us. Like that, I think that's the place where they feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
And you hope they trust us and some of the decisions we made, and you pass that along. So I think that's a great point in the the desire to be contemporary, which I think a lot of brands, I want to be this, I want to do that, I'm total online, I want to do this, and it's all great. But like you said, you don't want to lose sight of who you have in place, because they're brand ambassadors, the best ones that you have. Because if you serve them well, they're going to not just pass the word along, they're going to generationally pass it to an entire family. And I think that's what traditional methods can do, because it's a little bit closer to the to the source.
Yeah, because I think you have an opportunity. It's that child with their early savings account eventually is going to open up a checking account, and they're eventually going to want to buy a car. They're going to need a car loan. They're eventually going to buy their first home. All those things can happen within one institution. And it's because of those daily interactions. And this is not just about, things that are, as much as having materials and having those more traditional things within the branch experience too, but it's, are people still receiving statements? We do a lot of ads for statement, for whether they're digital or print statements. You're cross-selling other additional products and services, at the bank. That's considered a traditional mode of advertising, marketing your services. You reach out, I think, anytime my kids get any kind of mail from our bank, they're going to open it. Just because they know it's like, okay, as opposed to XYZ National Bank, like, okay, whatever, but okay, this is mine. I'm going to do this again. So your marketing and your messaging, you're building that relationship with those existing customers. When you bring them in, when you bring in new customers, you have an established rapport, I think, or process that can easily carry over to any of these new customers coming in too.
Yeah. No, I think localized attention for, a local financial institution is a bit of the golden ticket.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can always want to move forward without holding on to, some of the things that brought you, to the success that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying earlier, you don't want to lose touch with the audience that you have. And that's absolutely true. But I think the way that you do it and that the little sort of connection that you make can go a long way to keeping people around for a longer period of time.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to, keep going. But I know there was an example of, several of our clients, some are opening up new branch locations in a new town that they're not, they've never been in before. Some have gone through a merger acquisition, So it's about communicating. It's about, again, knowing your customer base and making sure that you're available and sharing information with them as easily as possible. So this gets a little bit away from the advertising part of it, the marketing part of it. But again, I think it's, using those traditional methods when you're relocating to a new place. There's, people are going to read email. Some people will never read email. Okay, so you send a direct note, hey, here's a shot of our new location. Here's how to find us, a little map. Some people like, seeing that kind of stuff. That's another way of reaching them. You're doing the online, you're doing the tangible things. I've gone through a couple merger kind of acquisition kind of situations where you send the letter, you send that booklet that says, here's all the new, bringing in these new customers that are coming over. Here's all the accounts that we offer. Here's the products and services we have. This is what's going to be happening with your account. You're building that trust level. You're getting that information to your customers and new customers in multiple options. Mm-hmm. So you feel like, okay, you're making all those, you're hitting all those touch points So nobody feels like they're kind of coming in blind, so they're, you're getting all that information out to them in multiple ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of building off of that with the core conversion conversation, it's obviously a very, very important, very stressful time for a lot of financial institutions. And I think in all of our suggestions for strategy, we would always suggest a good mix of both traditional and digital, just making sure that, again, you hit all of those touch points, because that's how we ensure that everybody is aware that this is happening. So definitely very important.
And we touched upon it sort of throughout this whole conversation. The brand part of this is about those, soft skills. That's how the brand is built, off of the values that maybe were started 100 years ago, and you still want to continue into a contemporary world. So whether it's an acquisition where you have now new customers or members coming in, you want to kind of transfer that over to them. It's like, this is what you're walking into. Right. This isn't a bad thing. This is a good thing. So that brand aspect of, what your message is, what your story is, and making sure that they get it, and they get that, your main goal is to get them, understand them. Right. And we get to do that through communications, through direct mail communications with the new customers that are coming in the door, that don't know us. We have to translate to them that this is what we're all about, and you don't have to be scared. So that's a traditional sort of channel.
And I think having the experience, as our agency, I can speak to the part of working with the clients on a direct basis and getting that information out of them. What makes them unique? What makes them different? What makes them special in their community, to their customers, those kind of things. We build that relationship with the financial institution that we're working with. Then that translates over to your team on the creative side to make sure that you have the information you need to kind of craft that brand message and make sure that it's coming across properly. And then that all then comes back to the bank. So it's really, there's as much synergy in how we do things as an agency, and we kind of really involve ourselves, I think, with the institutions, with our clients, to get a real clear understanding of who they are and who their customers are too.
It's interesting. So if I look at our client roster, right, and they're around the country, they're community financial institutions, they have competition in their geography, and it comes down to finding that open space where you can make your message shine, where you can do it better. Yeah. And I personally don't think it's all that hard. You're going to go into an area, like I said, and maybe you have 2 or 3 direct competitors. You got your big national brands out there, but as I said earlier, I think they compete for some parts of the audience, but for the kind of your true, community banking audience, they're probably going to lean into the community financial institution a little bit more. So now you're really competing against the other banks that are your size. And it's really like, do it better, say it a little louder, say it a little prouder, show up in areas that maybe where your competitors aren't showing up, and be real, be authentic, be trusting. There's a lot of bad work being done. I hate to say that, but there is. I mean, there's a lot of things, opportunities that are not being taken advantage of. And I think for whether it's our clients or new clients or just other, FIs out there, I think that zone of where you live is like, own it, own that billboard on the corner and make that yours, and make that message rotate and do things that are interesting. Maybe there's a memorable event that you do every year at a high school game, like I said, hand up the fingers. So-and-so Bank or Credit Union shows up every year because they care about their local partners and neighbors. You just got to beat that drum over and over again and do it better than everyone else.
Yeah. I have a client out in the Midwest that during the summer months, they're very involved, and even into the fall. Local fairs, 4-H events, all these kind of things. They set up a booth at a lot of these events, with very community oriented. You can't give somebody a digital ad when they show up to your booth, right? So you do need that tangible information, and you do need to be able to provide somebody like, I need some information. Oh, what do you have for, deposit accounts? Oh, here's a brochure. Again, it gets them something, it gives them something to take away with them. So you're kind of building that recognition, that awareness. But again, what is your overall strategy involved, throughout the course of the year? Think about those community events. Think about those ball games. Think about, going to the winter parade or something like that? Is there something, do you have a presence there? And what are you able to provide to those potential customers to give them the information about your institution? Something to think about too.
Absolutely. Brand, generally brand is a long game and a short game. Like you're doing things on the daily that are, fulfilling on your brand promise or your story or whatever it is that you feel that what makes you stand out. So there's definitely a short impression that's made, but it is a drumbeat over time.
Yeah.
One of the things I've said probably too many times, but you drive by, your local FI and there's a logo there. That logo is not the brand, but it's a reminder of the experience, right? And all the things you just talked about, Jay, all these little things that connect you to this emotional brand. As I drive by and I'm not really even thinking about that FI, I might remember some nice thing that they did or just their presence in the community. And then I stash that away. And then when my time comes where my kid needs a car loan or, we're thinking about refinancing or whatever it might be, that little kind of memory does hold. You don't know when it's going to show itself as a real sticky thing, but it's sort of there. And that's the drumbeat over time that a brand does. That's, going through them all. It might be a print ad in the local small newspaper because a lot of people still read those in some small towns. So it's important. And it's the billboard and it's direct mail. It's in branch signage. And then when you do get hit with that digital ad, you go, it's like looking at the logo. It's not just a digital ad that's lost in the clutter of all the other digital things that are going on. It's a reminder of the experiences that you already had over a longer period of time. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point too, because we do get quite a few organizations that we speak to that say we're really looking to transfer our efforts completely into the digital space. Right now we're just doing print or we're just doing radio. And I think it's really important to maybe try and shift your mindset and think this is actually a really good opportunity to utilize that mix. And you don't necessarily, just because a lot of different FIs are doing a significant amount of digital investments, that you need to completely move your efforts into that space as well. I think it's, again, a really good opportunity to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And again, to maybe just think about those opportunities a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think part of what we try to do too is make sure that all those different channels are supporting each other.
Right.
It's, again, is it the QR code? Is it is there a tagline that you come up with or a headline for an ad that's used in the digital and the print? And, is there that synergy going on?
Yeah. So it's a consistent drumbeat.
Exactly.
And it ties back to other things. I've always, been in the business a long time, ad business, I guess. And I've always been a radio person. Like I really like radio. I know it's maybe not as popular as it used to be, but we do have Spotify. We do have streaming services. I think the opportunity to tell your story outside of print and digital ads and landing pages and be able to get a voice behind it is really cool too and really valuable and impactful. Same with video. You don't have to spend, the world to do a good, smart message that hits people where they live with relevancy. So.
Well, I think we've been speaking for quite a while, and I think we hit a lot of really good points. So I'm going to actually open it up to see if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask. Just give maybe a minute or two to see if anybody would like to chime in here.
Well, this was a great conversation. And I love, the idea of doing, mixed media, like doing a bunch of different things to support a brand, like say, being consistent across the board. Making sure that if you have a campaign going that you're fulfilling on that everywhere. So when those little kind of things hit you in your path, you can kind of connect the dots.
And I think too, as we're waiting for potential questions, I know, on a regular basis, I'm informed by our clients like, okay, we have a budget. We're trying to work within this kind of budget for either this one campaign or for our annual strategy, those kind of things. It's important, we have, again, working with our clients, we take a look at that very holistic approach and say, okay, working within this and understanding who your market is, what opportunities are available to you in those markets. We craft our media team and you as part of the creative team crafts a very comprehensive and very thoughtful use of that budget. And we want to, we do it as best as we can to anticipate what will perform well, down to, what media we're using, what month a campaign is going to be running, all those kind of things, and kind of build that in. So as the marketing managers that I would deal with on a regular basis, they're reporting to senior management. They want to know, where's our money going? When you're making a presentation to the board, what is marketing doing? Okay, here's what we have for budget. This is what we're anticipating for the different channels we're going to use. This is how we're spending our money. And ultimately, what we try to provide are those results, is that reporting that shows, okay, this is what we did. This is kind of the numbers we attracted, and trying to see that affects, are you meeting checking goals? Are you reaching lending numbers that you're looking to do? So again, I think it's very much as much as it is building that holistic approach to marketing. It's a holistic approach to working with our customers, our clients, and say, we hear what you're saying, and this is our best understanding of what would work for you.
Dividing the dollars so that they're all working.
And I think,
towards a similar goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you sort of just answered this question. We do have a question here from Jason that says, do you have experiment first based on markets so that you don't overcommit to the wrong channel?
Yeah, I think, and what we've done too is we had somebody from the media group, but I know, we do a lot of A/B marketing too. We'll do a lot of that testing. It's like, I did a campaign, an email campaign for a client promoting their new checking account. And we tried two very distinct approaches to the messaging of that account. We sent out that email, got some very good results and very interesting results back in terms of information. So then, of those two campaigns, the one that actually performed more effectively, that's where we proceeded further with a digital campaign. And we did some online updates to their website based on that, did some direct mail using that information. So yeah, trying to get an understanding of what messaging works effectively, and also what media outlets work best. Definitely pay attention to that.
But we got this far through this webinar without saying email till just then. And and I sort of was thinking about it earlier, but email's a great opportunity to be able to test the market, test the message, not spend a lot of dollars. Sort of it's very targeted. Find people with the right interest, really strong list, and see if that's kind of the message is working, or maybe even try a couple different messages, and it feels like if you nailed something, you found something, then maybe you can start bringing that into other other platforms, because you can feel confident that, okay, I think we got the right tone, we got the right audience, and we know how to hit it so that those dollars are well spent.
Right.
I think this might be the longest running webinar we've had so far. I think we're close to 45 minutes, which is great.
That's good way to end the year.
Absolutely.
Jay has a lot to say.
I know. Sometimes it can go and forget it. But I think, one thing, I'm just going to keep going, because why not? I think something that I remember you and I were having a conversation the other day about some of these more traditional methods that we're using and materials that we're providing, especially when it deals without in-person touch within, the local branch. Are your employees, is the bank staff aware of what you're doing for marketing? Are they aware of what kind of incentives that the bank is offering, what kind of special products and campaigns are being offered right now? So giving them some insight into this too is very important. So whether it's a handout, whether it's a TV monitor slide or something like that, I think that's great too for internal awareness.
That's a good point. So a straight digital campaign can happen without anyone within the organization actually knowing about it, other than the marketing team.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe who's ever signing off on the budget, right? But your tellers and your line staff and middle management, sometimes they might not even know. Of course, if it's a special offer that has to do with their department, a CD rate or something like that, they're going to know that the promotion's going on. But some of these branded sort of initiatives, it's great to bring that team in and give them a kind of a sense of what's going on. So that's a good opportunity too.
Yeah, certainly.
Since they live that brand every day, if you're making a statement in a brand messaging or something like that, like, we do this and this is how we are, you want to make sure that they're living that, and they can back that up too.
Yeah, I mean, they're holding on to the values that the brand stands for, the bank stands for.
Yeah.
Have we hit our
I think
our
so.
intended goal?
Yeah. Did you guys have any closing thoughts you wanted to add, or?
I mean, for me, I can only, just kind of reiterate the idea that, it's about building those relationships, kind of establishing a message, I think, that works across, various channels. And our job as an agency is to work with financial institutions to make sure that we're as clearly defining what that is and who you're trying to attract going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we hit on everything. I think if there was something to walk away with, it was wrap your arms around the community, understand ways or try and figure out ways where you can be more tangible, more relevant, and more in their wheelhouse. Like how can, as a bank or credit union, get them to know that like you're on their side and you're in it with the same local purpose in mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. One thing that I'll kind of add to, I think there is a tangibility and authenticity to traditional media that isn't necessarily there with digital. And I think that, living in a world where everything is so digital and the internet is so intertwined with everything that we do, again, I think it really is another opportunity for FIs to differentiate themselves. So definitely recommend that everybody kind of maybe change their mindset when it comes to traditional media and think about maybe ways to integrate it into your strategy for 2025.
Love it.
Good
Awesome.
deal.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll catch you next year.
Thanks, Emma. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you guys.